In the stillness of a mountain cave, Jesus and his disciples embark on a journey beyond words, where silence becomes a mirror, revealing hidden fears, forgotten dreams, and the path to inner peace. As Jesus and his disciples prepare for their retreat, they leave the familiar, bustling streets of the village behind. The journey to the mountain is slow, giving each man time to reflect. The disciples have heard whispers about the importance of this retreat, and each feels a mix of anticipation and unease. The chapter paints a vivid picture of the mountainous landscape: tall, rugged cliffs rising against a setting sun, the fragrance of wild herbs filling the air, and the faint calls of distant birds returning to their nests. As the disciples walk, we delve into each of their backgrounds. Peter, a former fisherman, recalls his days on the sea, fighting storms and catching fish, realizing he now faces an internal storm he doesn't fully understand. John, the youngest, remembers his early days with Jesus and how he was captivated by his words and presence. Thomas, skeptical by nature, inwardly questions what wisdom silence could bring. Each disciple is given time to reflect on their personal journey, subtly hinting at the struggles and questions they carry. This chapter sets up the narrative, grounding the reader in the disciples' inner worlds. The disciples arrive at the mouth of a cave nestled within the mountain, its entrance shadowed by towering rocks and creeping vines. Jesus tells them to enter, instructing them to sit and observe the silence within. As they step into the darkness, the sounds of the outside world fade, replaced by an enveloping, almost sacred stillness. The descriptions of the cave are rich and atmospheric: walls covered with faint traces of ancient carvings, the faint smell of damp earth, and a chilling draft that brushes against their faces. The silence is not just the absence of noise, it has a weight to it, almost as if it has its own presence. The disciples find their spots on the stone floor, the chill seeping through their clothes as they settle in. Jesus lights a single torch, casting long, flickering shadows across the walls, giving the place an almost mystical feel. The disciples glance at one another, uncomfortable yet curious. Jesus sits at the center, his eyes closed, fully immersed in the quiet. One by one, the disciples close their eyes, attempting to find peace within the silence. The chapter focuses on setting the scene and drawing the reader into the cave's aura, building anticipation for what lies ahead. As the silence stretches on, the disciples start to feel restless. Without the usual sounds of life to distract them, their minds become loud, filled with the echoes of unresolved thoughts, fears, and regrets. Peter's mind races, his past actions replaying vividly. He remembers moments he's ashamed of, times he acted out of anger, moments of doubt, and fears of inadequacy. His chest tightens as these memories resurface, and he feels an urge to flee, but he stays, realizing he must confront them. Andrew, often overshadowed by his bolder companions, reflects on his quiet devotion and wonders if it has been enough. Has he truly understood Jesus' message, or has he simply followed without question? James, who often masks his emotions, feels old wounds resurface, memories of betrayals and disappointments that have shaped him. The silence strips away their defenses, leaving them bare and vulnerable. As each disciple confronts his inner voices, the chapter allows readers to dive deeply into the internal conflicts of each man, showcasing their humanity and vulnerability. This chapter reveals that silence, far from a comfort, can sometimes bring hidden fears to light. Sensing their discomfort, Jesus opens his eyes and speaks softly, breaking the silence. He begins to tell the story of Eli, a young shepherd with a kind heart but a restless mind. Jesus describes the beauty of Eli's village at the foot of the mountains: fields of golden wheat, winding rivers, and the distant sound of sheep bells. Eli would spend his days tending to his flock, but his nights were filled with questions about his purpose, his worth, and the meaning of his simple life. One evening, while grazing his sheep, Eli encounters an old man sitting alone in a mountain cave. The man's calm demeanor intrigues Eli, who feels an inexplicable pull toward him. Eli tries to strike up a conversation, but the old man simply gestures for him to sit beside him in silence. The shepherd, curious but somewhat frustrated, sits hoping for some insight. As time passes without a single word, Eli begins to feel the weight of his own thoughts. The disciples are drawn into the tale, each feeling a connection to Eli's restlessness and search for meaning. Jesus' storytelling is vivid and evocative, bringing Eli's world to life and allowing each disciple to find a piece of themselves in the young shepherd's journey. In Jesus' story, Eli returns to the cave day after day, hoping the old man will eventually speak. But each visit brings only silence. Frustrated, Eli starts to feel as though he is wasting his time. His mind fills with questions. Why won't the man speak? What is he waiting for? Jesus describes Eli's inner turmoil, his growing impatience, and his eventual surrender to the silence around him. Gradually, Eli begins to notice changes within himself, a softening of his anxieties, a quieting of his inner restlessness. He starts to feel a connection to the peace within the silence, something he cannot fully explain. The disciples are captivated, seeing reflections of their own struggles in Eli's journey. Peter realizes he, too, often resists silence, filling his life with action to avoid confronting his own doubts. Thomas is struck by Eli's frustration, sensing his own impatience mirrored in the shepherd's story. John feels a growing sense of clarity, realizing that perhaps silence has more to teach him than words ever could. Jesus pauses, allowing the story to settle into their hearts, each disciple pondering how silence might be a path to peace rather than a void to be feared. As the story resonates within him, Peter feels a wave of emotion he can no longer hold back. With trembling words, he opens up, admitting to Jesus and the group that he feels unworthy, that he fears he is not strong enough to stand by Jesus in times of difficulty. His voice breaks as he confesses moments of doubt and impulsive actions that he regrets deeply. "I am afraid, Master," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid that I will fail you." Jesus reaches out, placing a hand on Peter's shoulder, his eyes filled with compassion. "Peter, it is not perfection I seek, but a heart that is open and willing to grow." Jesus' words are like a balm to Peter's wounded spirit, and he feels a sense of release, as though a weight has lifted from his heart. The other disciples watch, moved by Peter's vulnerability. Inspired by his courage, they begin to share their own struggles. Thomas with his doubts, Andrew with his quiet insecurities, James with his fears of betrayal. The cave becomes a place of healing, where they are free to confront their own weaknesses without judgment. This chapter is a turning point, a moment of unity and shared understanding that deepens their bond as a group. In a quiet moment, John, who has always felt deeply connected to Jesus, speaks with him privately. He admits his worry that he has been trying too hard to please Jesus, fearing that he might disappoint him. Jesus listens patiently, offering John a gentle reminder that love and understanding are the true paths to wisdom, not perfection. "John," he says, "you are already worthy. Your journey is not to prove yourself but to know yourself." John feels a newfound clarity, realizing that his love for Jesus is rooted not in pleasing him but in a shared purpose. He sees himself with fresh eyes, understanding that his path is one of compassion and humility. This chapter focuses on John's personal growth, showing the reader how true wisdom is often about seeing oneself as one truly is. As dawn approaches, Jesus gathers the disciples to share the meaning behind Eli's story. "Silence is a mirror," he says, revealing what we hold within. It allows us to listen to God's voice, which is always speaking in our hearts. The disciples begin to see the value of silence not as emptiness but as a teacher that brings clarity. They realize that in their journey to find peace, they must embrace stillness rather than fear it. They discuss how they might take this lesson into their daily lives, reflecting on how silence can help them face challenges with a calm spirit. Each disciple feels a shift within, a sense of inner peace and strength that they hadn't felt before. Jesus' words become a guiding light, illuminating a new way of approaching their faith. Emerging from the cave, the disciples feel as though a burden has lifted. They share laughter and stories, feeling closer than ever before. The mountain path, once daunting, now feels familiar and filled with warmth as they walk back together, exchanging glances and words of encouragement. Their hearts are lighter, and they feel an unspoken unity, a bond that goes beyond words. This chapter explores the joy and camaraderie that follows their inner transformation, showing how they have become a family in spirit. They walk in unity, feeling as though they have discovered a source of strength that will carry them forward. At the foot of the mountain, Jesus gathers them one last time, imparting his final wisdom. True peace is found not in escaping struggle, but in the courage to face ourselves. Silence is the key, the doorway to knowing God within. Each disciple feels a profound gratitude, tears filling their eyes as they realize the depth of what they have been given. They embrace, knowing this journey will remain with them forever, a memory that will guide them through life's trials. As they part ways, they carry the peace of the mountain with them, feeling forever changed by the experience. This is end of the story. Comment amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.